Okay, it's lesson 4, part 2. So we've added input validation. We added a little more validation to our quantity. So we already had required and type equals number attributes, but we added a min equals 1. So in our form, users can't type values. But then we also now have added PHP validation on the server in case a user tries to post directly to our save page and they don't go through our form. So in this case, we're checking that name, we're trimming the value, making sure it's not empty. We're checking that quantity isn't empty. Then we're checking that quantity is a number, and also that it's 1 or higher. And only if all of these validation checks pass are we going to save to the database. So it's our responsibility whenever we're building input forms, that especially we're publishing them on the web. A lot of these forms, they're public. Anybody can come and use them. So we have to make sure that we control the data that we're getting. And we don't let users save records if data is missing or invalid. So this is part of our responsibility as developers. Okay, so in your assignment, I want to see HTML5 validators in your form, and I also want to see if statements that check on the PHP side of things that all the inputs are valid. Okay. And what the specific rules will be, it will depend what the inputs are in your form. So we're going to enhance this a little bit. We're going to extend what we've done. So right now in our database, we've got one table. We've got an items table. It's got an item ID that we don't see. And then we've got a name and quantity. What we also want to be able to do, I want to be able to organize the grocery list based on categories. Because if we have this long list, of items, we maybe want to be able to organize it by the category or the section. So if we're looking at our list on our phone as we're going through the grocery store, all the items are kind of grouped together from one category. So we're going to do a couple things in our database. We want to add a categories table, and then we want to add a category ID to the items table. And then we want to modify both the form and the save page. So when we're adding an item, we can also choose from a drop-down list. We can choose from the list of categories. So I'm going to start you off on some of this process, and then I'm going to create some breakout groups, and you guys are going to work on a couple of the pages in a breakout group. So if we go to lesson 4, we need this item, this lesson 4 in-class SQL script. So let's open this item up. And I want you to copy it. So it's going to create a categories table. And then we're going to modify the items table by adding an integer category ID. So copy that script. I'll also throw it in the chat because I'm all about efficiency. As Katie in Letterkenny says, if you're going to be one thing, be efficient. So I want to open up my SQL workbench. I'm going to connect to my AWS database. My connection should be saved from last week, so I can just open it. I need to run the use command first, so make sure you add use and your database name. And then you can just paste this in. So first is the use command, second is create table, and third is alter table. And I'm just going to execute this. So it's now built a categories table, and it's added a new column. Megan, I do not know. Good question. It's not like a super high-end interface. So I would be If there is, it's probably under preferences. I'd be kind of surprised. SQL editor. Yeah, here, fonts and colors. There's only this. When those are the schemes, 7, 8, and high contrast. Yeah. So make sure you execute the query. So now if I run select star from items, we should see that we have a null. Every item in the table has a null value for the category ID. Right? So we've now added this fourth column, but all the items that are already here, they don't have any categories. So run the script. And then I'll go back to D2L. So I have changed the items table, and now I've added the categories table. So now I want you to open up this item that says create read practice. So I'm going to open up breakout rooms, and you'll automatically get assigned to a room. So here's what I want you to work on and do this together. You need to build category details. So this is a form that's going to have one input box where we can type in a new category, and then a save page that's going to save that category to the new table we just built. So then we're going to use that form so we can add the different sections of a grocery store into our database. So we'll add things, like produce, seafood, dairy, butcher, packaged goods kind of thing, whatever. Okay, so you're going to build these two pages together, work together, try and get the code done. I'm going to give you some time to do this, maybe 20, 30 minutes, and then we'll review the solution. You can certainly ask for help. We'll review the solution together in a little while before we take our next break. Okay, so I'm going to put you in breakout groups of about maybe 3. And you can work together, build these two pages. The description's right here, the deal. Under create read practice, you're going to build category details and save category. So the form will allow a user to enter the name of a category, and the save category page is going to save that value into our new categories table here. The ID is auto-generated. So it's a very simple form. One text box, one label, and one button. So I'm going to pause the recording, pause my screen share, and give me a minute, and I'll set up the breakout groups. My recording. So you can either, could I ask somebody, either use the chat or maybe put your code for your category details. Maybe you put it up on pastebin.com or on paste of code. I guess here that's probably easier for today. I'll put the link in the chat. So if you want to, you've got the form working. Someone wants to put it on paste of code and then share the link in the chat so we can generate our category details. I've got an empty page here. So what should go in this form? Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. Very speedy. So I'll grab from the H1 down to the form. Thanks, Chris and Chris. Thanks, Mason, as well. Thanks, Adil. Appreciate the sharing. So we've got an H1, a form. Critically, our method is post. so things are submitted securely. We're going to post to save category, and we simply have a label with one input called category, and we're going to make it required. So nothing terribly fancy here. Thanks to everybody who posted. So here's our form, and it's required. So until I add something, okay, and can I maybe ask somebody if you've managed to, one group, if you've got your save page working correctly, if you'd be willing to, again, post it to paste a code, make sure you don't include your database password in there. So take that out. But if you've got a proper save page where we're validating that the name isn't empty and it can save to your category table if someone wants to share, and we can try that out as well. Thank you, Mason. Thanks, Chris. So yeah, please make sure you're using your own credentials here. So I'm going to go to my save page. And I'm going to update the credential. Thanks very much, Ethan, as well, and Adil. Thanks, everyone, for sharing. So make sure you put in your own credential. One thing I'm going to change, I think this is going to work. Personally, nothing wrong with the way this code looks great. I'm going to make a couple little changes to it. Personally, I prefer to use my variables and parameters that match the field name exactly. So I'm going to call my variable category just because it matches my input. And same here, this is actually not going to work. Because if we look, let's see here. If we look at our table, the column we're inserting into is actually called name. So we do need to modify here. I'm going to call my parameter name. So this will fail if the column's called cat, because we don't have a column called cat in the database. The column is actually called name. Okay, Mason, there are a number of links, so you can try one of the, sorry, Jack, you can try one of the other links. A number of people have shared generously. Yeah, Ivan, that would work. Yes, that's fine. As long as the parameter here in your SQL, as long as it matches the parameter in your bind param. The other thing is we should also add validation here. So again, I'll maybe set an OK variable and say if category is empty, I'll put this back up on paste bin, completed in a minute. So I'm going to echo name is required. And just like we did on our other save page, I'm going to set OK to false. And then I'm going to wrap all of the rest of the code inside an if statement. So if OK evaluates to true, and I'm going to move all this stuff inside. Everything right down from my connection to my confirmation message. So my closing curly bracket goes at the bottom. So I'm going to default OK to true and toggle it to false. I will put this up on Pastebin. In case you need it. And again, you'll need to enter your own credential here. So thanks for sharing, all of you who did, Mason in particular, thanks for this one, Adil, Ethan, and Chris as well. So just like we did with our save item, we want to add some validation to save the save category. So we're not saving a blank category. And it's important we're inserting into the name column. So that was just a small change I had to make from the version I started with. So I'm going to try this out now and see if I can save some categories to the database. Let's try our new pages. So first I'll try to save maybe produce. Oops, I took out my password. So I'll resubmit my form. Okay, it says category saved. So now if I want to look in the database, I can run select star from categories. And I've got my first category here, which is produce. So our form and save page are working. I'm going to add a few other categories. I'm going to produce, I'll add dairy, I'll add seafood, maybe I'll add pantry. You can add whatever categories you want. I'll add the bakery. And maybe I'll add the house category. So, I want things like I need cups, I need garbage bags, any sort of non-food items. So I've added all of those with my form. So now if I run my query, we get I get 6 categories, which is great. So we want to use these categories now. We want to attach them. We want to embed this list into our item details page, so that when we add new grocery items, we have a drop-down list where we are selecting a category and attaching it to each item in the grocery list. So we could then sort and filter our list based on the category. What do I need from the bakery? What do I need from the produce department? What do I need from the seafood counter, for example? And then this form is going to become very similar to what you have to do in your assignment, right? So the form saves to one table, but then the second table is going to be used as a related item. So for me, I had players and positions, that every player is is attached to a position. So we're going to replicate the same thing in our grocery list, and you're going to do the same in your assignment. Now, if you got a little bit behind, don't worry, I'm going to publish the code in just a minute. We'll maybe take a break a little bit early before we come and finish this off, and then have a look at Git. Does anybody have any questions before we take a break and before I upload the code? Okay, so I'm going to go back to my terminal. I'm going to upload all the changes. So it's lesson 4. Save category. Lesson 4, part 2. All right, so all the changes that we've made, they're on GitHub. Same repository, but I'll put the link in the chat anyway. So we'll take a pause here. We'll come back just before 4 o'clock, about 3:58. And then we want to integrate our category as a dropdown into our item page. We save an item, we can pick a category and have that connection made in the database. And then we'll have a look at Git before we end for today. Okay, let's take a 10-minute break here.